Red, this is why you're never allowed in my office. Can we keep it together? Please keep it together. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Paralegal Freelance Lounge. Jacqueline Foster here. It is time for a freelance paralegal fail episode. Why? Because not everything is a highlight reel, and we all truly learn more from the what was I thinking moments that didn't stem from perfection and being perfectly prepared. All right, freelance paralegal fail topic of this week. I've gotten into a difficult situation. I took on a project, underpriced it, and promised early completion based on the information I had. Delays are adding time and extra work. How do I inform the client the project requires more time? Additionally, what are the standard project-based pricing plans out there? I understand this oopsie/fail moment to the pit of my being. I understand this so well because I made the exact same mistake with my very first freelance paralegal client that I acquired early on in my business. I want to make it very, very clear. When I use the word fail, I'm not pointing fingers at this paralegal being like, haha, you're so stupid. Like, how'd you do that? Blah, blah. Because I should just be pointing fingers at myself because I made the exact same mistake. And likely any additional questions or fail submissions that I receive, I will have likely made those mistakes too, because that's just the reality of building a business, especially when we don't have backgrounds in businesses. We're paralegals. We're not trained to build businesses that are scalable, sustainable, and profitable. Let me start this episode with just a little story time of my very first client. I started my business March 23rd, 2020. By early April, I received my first client inquiry. I made one LinkedIn post and a client fell into my lap. The client was seeking a paralegal to help him with a pretty complex motion in a federal district court. I personally had never worked in this court. I have never written a motion of this complexity. I had done appeals. I have done local state district courts in Minnesota. I've done some complex motions there, but this was totally out of my wheelhouse. And when I started my business, I launched it kind of blindly. Like, you'll hear my build before you believe mentality, where I maybe took that to the extreme and I just opened shop and I said I'm open for clients. I don't even think I had thought out my pricing or nailed it or refined it. I didn't really refine what my services were. I had no idea what business model I was going down. I honestly had a logo, a name, a website, and a brief description of I offer services to attorneys across the United States, yada, yada, yada. Very basic, bare bones. And I made that post talking about the 5 benefits of working with a remote paralegal. And I got a bite off of it. I had a voicemail in my inbox, and it was like, hey, we're looking for a paralegal. We saw your services. I was like, this cannot be real. I have to be getting scammed. And I was so flabbergasted that it worked, that like I built it and they came. An attorney came out of nowhere to hire my services, that then I'm like, oh my gosh, what if this is a pro se litigant just asking me to do paralegal work? I'm going to commit UPL without even knowing it. How am I going to make sure? I mean, talking 3,000 miles an hour in my brain. And I was so excited, but I was so heart pounding out of my chest. And I'm like, I don't have time to figure all of this stuff out. I need to get this attorney on the phone, because if I don't, then they're going to move on to the next paralegal. I'm going to lose the lead. I ran back downstairs to my office and got on the phone and started talking through. I quickly, before I got on that call, wrote down, maybe I'll charge 35, 40, 35, 40. And then I just selected 30 or something. And 35 or 40, let's go to 30. It makes me feel better. At that moment, I got on the phone and I called the attorney and I found out a little bit more about the information. I was like, yeah, I absolutely can help you with that. No, I was not selling myself saying, yeah, I have experience doing this exact motion in this exact court, but I confidently expressed my ability to deep dive, research, figure it out along the way. I had some paralegal connections that could help me with tables and formatting and the specific district requirements. I was very, very honest and forthcoming with my experience, and we clicked really, really well. And he needed a paralegal that would deep dive and try their best to figure it out. I let him know I'm charging $30 an hour, and he's like, no, that won't work for me. I really need this to be on flat fee. He was taking the case on pro bono, so he's like, I have to cap this, and this is where I'm at. We talked back and forth, acting like I've done this a million times, but I'm like, I usually don't do flat fees, but I will submit a proposal to you within the next couple of hours. Let me do some figuring out on time and how that would translate, and I'll submit the proposal. I charged $250 for the motion, and then I think another $250 for the response to the response of opposing counsel. And Oh boy, did I undersell myself. So you really think about what $250 an hour, even divided by 30, translates to in hours. I probably spent a solid 60 hours, 60 or more hours on this motion, just on the first motion. And it wasn't because of my shortcomings and not knowing the district. Yeah, I was prepared to eat that time, if you will, just to make sure I was not billing the client for my learning. It was because the client was incarcerated and the BOP was incredible to work with that he was at. The client wasn't super forthcoming. It was nearly impossible to get in touch with them on a regular basis through the BOP processes. I had to hunt down medical records from when this now 40-something-year-old was 5. There was absolutely zero case law, no precedence for this particular issue. Further, when we got our answer from this state, there was some really big discrepancies in the facts that we couldn't have possibly known unless the client was forthcoming, and a few curveballs. All of that to say, let's circle this back to the real what it is of the paralegal fail moment. Point being, on that whole story, I sent out the invoices. I did it. I stood true to my word. I didn't ask for more money. I didn't say, hey, I didn't really anticipate this to be this complex. I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate that. While I probably could have, I was a bit nervous to do. I just owned it. I owned the mistake. I chalked it off as a lesson learned. And I don't look at that as a fail. So I use the term fail very lightly and loosely when I don't actually mean freelance paralegal fail. It's really freelance paralegal on real life lessons learned, right? But that doesn't ring as good as freelance paralegal fail. Because in fact, I have that very first invoice framed for my collage for my business journey milestone wall. I'm still very proud of that invoice. I'm exceptionally proud of the motion I drafted, and especially not having any of the experience as a paralegal. It really pushed my confidence in my paralegal skills, my solution-based approaches, my research skills, my legal writing skills. It set me up to be able to be here right now to share the story with somebody else that's going through it. How can you look at that and be like, oh, that was an awful moment in time? Point being, it's okay, and it's actually pretty common in the beginning, especially when you're playing with flat fees, to undersell yourself as a freelance paralegal because we're, number one, nervous, not confident, not owning our worth. It's hard to demand the money that you really, even the market is telling you should be asking for. I really love this fail topic for this episode because it was the first fail I truly had in my business, the very first one that I learned so much from on a multitude of levels. Let's start dissecting it and look at how we can first and foremost fix it right now where this paralegal is at, working with their client, not meeting the deadline, and 2, how we can prevent this from happening again in the future. Okay, first, let's fix the fail in the moment with the client, especially because this isn't so much just about undercharging. It's also about overpromising, under-delivering on timelines. So first and foremost, you really want to acknowledge the situation of missing that deadline actively. Don't wait. Don't throw it off to the side. Don't hide in a corner and hope the attorney won't notice. Be proactive about it the moment you, as the paralegal, recognize that there could be something delaying, derailing you meeting that deadline. Let them know in the most communicative and professional way you possibly can. Something like, I wanted to reach out as we're working through your project. After digging into the details, a few factors have added to the initial timeline. Take this advice in every scenario you ever encounter in your business, good, bad, whatever. Always think about focusing on the client's benefit first and foremost. Explaining to them that you're trying to ensure quality work is going to be delivered, that they're going to get a complete and thorough end product brought to their desk, right? That's what they hired you for. You could say something like, to maintain quality and thoroughness you're expecting, I need a bit more time to wrap things up correctly. Now here you definitely can get into some of the details as to why it has required more time from you. I actually recommend it. Now some people are like, just don't even bother with the details. I do think that, especially because of the nature of our clients, which are attorneys, we need to give them reason. We need to let them know what is specifically derailing it without putting that back on the attorney. You're not going to outright say, hey, your client is so not forthcoming and now I'm completely derailed. You didn't let me know about this in the beginning, so it's going to take me more time. You can reframe that in saying, there's been a few discrepancies in some of the things your client has mentioned, and I just want to double, triple verify the fact patterns so that we can make sure what we are submitting won't come back to bite us in the end. That's not funny, but I didn't. Oh man, it was something you couldn't even, like, you could not even make up. It's that outrageous, like how bad that fact discrepancy was. Okay, I digress. So you're letting them know in a way that isn't pointing fingers on anybody, not on you, not on the attorney, not on their client. Really, it is on their client and it is on you and it is on the attorney, all collectively together, but we're not pointing blame. We're not trying to shift focus or shift blame to anybody. We're just, this is the reality. There's been some discrepancies in the facts and I need to double, triple verify what I'm working with here so that we don't have anything thrown back in our face. Or if you're not talking litigation or that's not the main reason, like it was in my story, adjust that a little bit, but just really thinking about how you're not pointing blame whatsoever. After you have, number one, acknowledge the situation, number two, focus on the client's benefit. Now you're going to provide a realistic update for them, a very realistic update. I want you to absolutely underpromise and overdeliver. You can give them a new estimated completion date, push it out a little bit. Obviously, if there's pressing deadlines, a statute of limitations coming up, or we have a response deadline coming up, or what have you, you're going to want to really make sure you try to hit that time. And if you can't, perhaps asking your attorney for some assistance in making sure you get to that deadline. But if you don't have that hard deadline, give them a very, very underpromised expectation. Okay. So at this point, you can over deliver the second time because we missed the first time. Okay. And remember, we're talking about this is already happening. And next, we're going to talk about how to prevent this from happening again. But we missed the opportunity to underpromise and overdeliver the first time. So we want to recreate that opportunity for ourselves. You'll say something like, given these updates, I'm adjusting the timeline and expect to have it completed by specific date. I will keep you updated on progress a couple of times per week until the motion is complete. Over communicate always. Your attorney is, and I'm saying this by experience, no, I have not grabbed some statistic off of Google. My experience is your attorney is 98% more likely to forgive missed deadlines, forgive little attention to detail issues if you're very, very over communicative. If you are constantly giving them updates, reassurance, letting them feel like they're in the loop of the work that you're doing, because that's one of the biggest concerns attorneys have when offloading their work to a contract paralegal or a paralegal remote, whether that's employee or contract, is just they're worried about not having that peace of mind that their stuff is getting done. So as the freelance paralegal, you want to make sure you are giving them that peace of mind as much as possible. Obviously, don't inundate their inbox with 17 updates a day, but find a rhythm that works really well for both you and the attorney. And that might be a mutual conversation you have on what would work the best for them, to make sure that they always feel in the know about the work they have entrusted with you. In this moment now, because we've made a mistake, and it's easy to say, well, the attorney didn't really give me all the information, and I already undercharged them, and kind of getting like sassy about it, if you will, or like, this isn't my fault, why should I have to fix it, kind of stuff. Table that. Just table that, scream into a pillow. I don't care what you do to put the outlet somewhere else. Don't project that onto your client. And it's not apologizing profusely and saying, this is my mistake, this is my mistake, this is my mistake, but it's taking ownership of the correction of something that happened and it's happened. We can't go back in time. So you as a professional are taking ownership. And at this moment, the number 4 is offering solutions. So this is that moment in customer service where you allow the client to somewhat feel in charge of the course that's taken forward to correct the issue, if you will. But when you hear what I'm about to say, you'll see how this is a little bit of a sneakier approach to it that still keeps you in the driver's seat, it still keeps you in the professional, I got this, good reputation type of seat, while also allowing the attorney to feel like they are holding on to the issue themselves to some capacity. So you could say something like, I can either continue with the current scope with this new timeline, or we can break it down into 2 stages so you have something sooner. Let me know what works best for you. I'll get the first draft to you when really you want, and it's going to be a messy, really ugly first draft. I can get that to you if you want it by X, or I can just continue to make sure I get my best final draft that I have over to you. What would make you more comfortable ensuring that we're going to meet this new deadline? Do you want me to break this up into different pieces? Now, this might be like a data entry project. Assistants doing data entry projects. Maybe you have to input like 200 pieces of data. You could say, once I get to the 100 mark, I can send you that first. The next person in the chain of custody that has to do the next thing can get started on their project. Now we're going to apologize and reassure, but we're not going to say, I am so sorry for my mistake. I am so sorry for this. And no, that's not avoiding ownership. Really, at the end of the day, it wasn't fully your fault. You didn't have all the facts in front of you. It could be your fault because you didn't make sure you had all the facts in front of you. But there are so many things in legal. We don't know what curveball we're going to be thrown that day. That's why we're all a little bit like mental sometimes, right? Because it's like, what's going to be in store for me today? What's going to derail my day today? It's almost like being a parent. You never know. Is my child going to wake up with 102 fever, or are they going to wake up like pissed off and they don't want to go to school? We don't know. So really, it's the fault of the industry we're in. If we really want something to blame it on, it's just the industry. It is what it is. It is the nature. This is how you're going to frame your apology that also is providing reassurance to your commitment and reassurance of your professionalism. You're going to say, I appreciate your patience and I want to make sure this is exactly what you need. I am committed to delivering something you're happy with, and I'm very grateful for your understanding. You're acknowledging the inconvenience for the attorney. You are extending gratitude for that patience and their understanding, but you're also not fully taking the I effed up. Before we jump into going forward and how future clients, future projects, you can avoid this very situation and having to go through this as much as possible, I want to take a moment to pause here and say that situations like this with your clients are going to come up. It's going to come up in a, oh, I screwed up. Oh, I didn't draft that right. They need me to redraft it. It's going to come up in a time discrepancy. You're not going to avoid problems throughout the entirety of your business journey as a freelance paralegal. There's no guarantee in life anyways in anything you do. So if you're seeking that, I don't know what to tell you. You are going to run into these situations. The number one thing to remember is that this can either, one, deepen your relationship with your client or completely damage it forever. And when I say deepen, I mean deepen. Think about when you go to Amazon. Maybe I'm the only one that reads reviews this extensively, which is kind of funny because I'm the like epitome of an impulse shopper. But sometimes I do read reviews when I'm comparing. And when you go to Amazon and you read those reviews, you'll see this trash talk all over a review. This company, this product is crap. It came to me defective. It's not working. And then some of those reviews, you'll see an edit to add at the bottom. The company reached out to me, or the company was very responsive in getting back to me and fixing the problem. They sent me a new product immediately. They paid for all the shipping. They let me keep the defective product so I didn't have to go through the hassle of shipping it back. They also gave me a coupon. I changed my review to a 5-star because the company was fantastic. And what that does in that moment is it also creates a loyal customer. I'm not guaranteed the vacuum that's being delivered tomorrow is going to turn on, right? Something could be defective in that particular one. It's about how that's remedied if it does happen, if and when it does happen, how that company chooses to fix the wrong or repair or make right what didn't go as planned. That's where you create loyal customers, because they know even when things go wrong, even when things aren't met, your attorney knows You're going to put forth your absolute professional best self to get it resolved, make it right. And when you get loyal clients like that, your attorneys are going to want to word of mouth refer you to their colleagues. So again, this can either deepen your relationship with this client or it can completely damage it. So really think long and hard about how you're remedying it. Really quick, I want to touch on the money part of it. You'll get mixed opinions on this. Some paralegals would tell you, oh my gosh, charge what you're worth. Tell them you need more money. This isn't your fault. You didn't know this. My personal opinion is it depends. If there was some real discrepancies in the information the attorney provided you as it relates to where the particular matter was at, the facts, what have you, you can find a way to let them know. I know I quoted you this, but it's going to be a little bit more. Personally, I would rather deepen that relationship. And moving forward, if I decide, depending on the circumstances, to continue working with that attorney, learn my lessons from the quote I gave out for that flat fee project. And this is where we're going to segue into the how to avoid this situation for your next client. All right, let's talk about avoiding this issue in the future. You need to assess the project thoroughly if you are doing flat fee on a wide variety of different scenarios. Flat fees are something that I'm really mixed and torn on, whether I like them or not. I think they can work really great with things that are repeatable, predictable. If your business model is a team model and this is what we need from the attorney every single time before we even start, and this is how long it's going to take us once we have all that information, you can price it with that knowing. Now, the flat fees, like what I did for this motion, required a lot of different factors that I could never predict how they were going to go. I had to communicate with the client. I had to get medical records. I had to research case law where there was no precedence for this particular situation. There were too many unknown factors of getting the project completed that it's really difficult to just, this is my flat fee. And I'm going to, in a moment, share with you some of the options for different types of approaches if you want to go flat fee on these types of projects that are really unpredictable, what you can put in place. Be very, very careful with things that are not predictable, with things that can be curveballs thrown left and right at you, which is a lot in litigation, motion drafting, anything of that nature, trial prep, any of those types of, even discovery sometimes can get out of control, right? So number 2 is to really ensure that you clarify the scope of your involvement in the project and really break this down for the client so they understand what they're getting within that flat fee. Is it including a first draft? Is it including revisions? Is it including client communication? Is it including organizing of documents, filing of documents? What all is it entailing? Or is it just drafting based on the facts that are given? When I'm talking my scenario, because I think that's the most complicated thing that you could possibly try to make a flat fee around, whereas you could apply this now to an estate plan and be like, oh, that's simple. So we're using that as an example of really get that scope narrowed down. Are you offering edits based on client changes their mind, or a new fact comes up, or a new piece of discovery comes into the mix? Are you offering free revisions if you make a mistake or rejected filing for what have you reasons? Don't get nitpicky, because there's a lot of things that could come up that are really minimal. If you're doing anything that can be very, very unpredictable, like client communication, like gathering fact patterns, like getting all these things, right? Understanding for the attorney to know that there could be additional costs involved if something gets derailed, and that they will be notified in advance. Things are kind of exceeding the scope of our agreement. So let's talk about some different pricing models that you can do within a flat fee. And I know that sounds crazy because you're like, it's a flat fee. How many different models could there be? It's just in the strategy on how you protect yourself and the client around that flat fee, okay? Pricing strategy option number 1, flat fee with the defined scope. I just let you know that defined scope, you have to be very, very clear. This is where I cut it off. I am not chasing down client information. You need to provide me XYZ information, and then I will begin drafting, and then I will begin the project. I'm not tracking down medical records from when the person was 5. You need to get me all the medical records. Or you could pay me an hourly rate to go gather all that information for you, but I'm not including that in the flat fee. The flat fee is considering I have everything I need in front of me to just sit down and bust the document out. It's the very narrow scope of what you are doing and being clear in additional services. And obviously you're going to have these conversations with the attorney on a discovery call. Likely you're going to meet with them on the phone, on a Zoom call. And so it won't be a shock when they get your proposal, but just to make sure that even in that first proposal you send over, that is clearly defined. The next pricing option you have within this flat fee kind of deal is my personal favorite, the milestone-based pricing, where you're going to divide a larger project into segments. Why I like this model so much is because there's different moments of payables. A paralegal reached out to me in my direct messages and said, I can't get my client to pay. I've done all these things and I can't get the client to pay the flat fee. She did a pay after model. A lot of paralegals would sit and say, well, do a pay before model, right? Do a pay before model, depending on the cost of the project. And if this attorney has never worked with you before, you might shy away a lot of attorneys from working with you because they might not be comfortable giving you $2,500 up front without even knowing your work performance. Maybe they've only had a few samples of your work. They can't even guarantee that it's your actual work. All these things are going through their mind, and $2,500 is a big check to write when we don't know what the quality of the work is going to be. So let's make sure that we are protecting both sides. Let's use my example for an example. I'm going to be very loose in the numbers I use because I'm not going to think too hard about this, but just say I probably could have justified a $1,500 flat fee, a $2,000. Let's use $2,000 because that's easier in my little math brain that I suck at math. So $2,000. Okay. I could say I need a $500 deposit that will ignite me to start doing client work. Now, getting all the information I need, the medical information I need. During that time, that $500 of that phase, I could have said, I will track my time. If we exceed 10 hours, whatever, during that time, it will switch to an hourly based until it needs to be getting done. And I will keep you informed the entire process. But because the phase can be so unpredictable, just getting ready to draft that document, especially being brand new on the case, I want to give yourself that little buffer of saying we're going to switch to an hourly rate. And at that time, that hourly rate will be billed out after every week or what have you. The next milestone would have been the first draft. So I need $250 to start drafting. And then upon the completion of that first draft, I need the additional $250, something of that nature. And then going on again to say, okay, now before I file the final product and hand over the final product, I need the remainder of $1,000. Okay. So that's where you do that milestone base that protects you and keeps the attorney feeling like they're getting what they're paying for immediately. Now, the third thing you can do is an hourly with an estimate. I know that kind of defeats the purpose of flat fee, but it's still kind of a flat fee. You're giving the attorney an idea of how much it will cost and saying, I'll cap it here, but this is sort of what it will cost. And when you say cap it high. Okay, cap it high, obviously not outrageously high, but cap it high. Say this project could cost up to about $3,000, but it could be less because I'm going to keep track of my hours, but that's where I will for sure cap it. That's giving that attorney that feeling of knowing I will not spend more than this on this project, and that's reasonable. Further, you are getting the ability to actually get what you're putting in, okay? Even if things get derailed, truly at the end of the day, because you've set your cap to accommodate derailment of the matter, but you're also in there setting the minimum of saying I need to at least make this much on the project. Somewhere in between, we're both going to be very, very happy. It gives the attorney the feel that they can expect what you are charging, what they're going to be budgeting for, and it's giving you that ability to not stress so much on exacts in your estimates. So here are the key takeaways. Clear communication, transparent pricing, and a lot of structure in how you are delivering it all will go a long way in preventing the fail that we are talking about on this episode. And this is just a conversation we need to be having more often, is about how we fail in business as paralegals, freelancing with attorneys. This is a really uncharted territory. There isn't a lot of information out there. And so you can do me a big favor. I have a link below. I would love to hear about a moment that you failed in your business, or just a general question that you might have. You just simply fill out the form below. You will remain anonymous. I do not even want your name. I keep it anonymous. It's not an option. fill out that form below and just ask me your raw question. And that could be a personal fail in business, a professional fail in business, a personal question in business, a personal question in general. I had a paralegal ask me if I decorated for Christmas yet. And the answer is no. No, I have not. No. Whatever your heart desires, ask away. I would love to bring it to the podcast and feature your question or your fail on an upcoming episode. And as a reminder, I have a no-cost freelance paralegal starter course where I'm going to walk you through the 12 steps of building a business for your freelance paralegal journey that is going to cover all of the things you really need to factor in before you launch or as you are launching. So go grab the resources below, freelanceparalegals.com, wherever you can find a link, click it, grab the resources, start exploring things that you maybe haven't thought about in being successful as a freelance paralegal. All right, thank you so much. Until next time, have great days ahead of you. I can't get up. Yes, you did do a good job, Goose. You did, Rooster. Where we go, babies? Is it time to go outside and get muddy in the rain? Is it? Oh God, here comes the bloodhound.